Hello and welcome back here to game number 2, St. Clair College versus the University of Windsor here. The Clash of the Titans here in Windsor, Ontario. We are jumping straight into the drafting phase. The teams have already completed their drafts on Pro Drafts, so we should have a good understanding of what they're going to be picking. Unfortunately, we didn't have access to those drafts, so we're seeing it live with you as it's happening here. We're seeing the Twisted Fate being banned out for the side of St. Clair, and again, the Orange band out from Windsor. So 4 bans that we saw in the last game being repeated here in game number 2.
I feel like we're probably going to see a couple different ones as this band phase goes along. Maybe not in the first initial 3, but as we get into bands 4 and 5, like with a way that Ironed was playing that Nunu, do you think it respects a ban?
I think there are ways of playing around it. I think St. Clair gave it a lot of space. We actually see the exact same 6 bans being brought up here again in game number 2, as we saw in the first game. I think the Nunu is a very strong pick, and Iron has proved that he knows how to pilot it exceptionally well. That being said, I don't know if it's deserving of a ban. And the Shen gets picked up for Frez, and the snap response in Urgot. Iron is going to get his Nunu again as well. And it looks like Windsor is just going to be happy playing their comfort pick. This Urgot into Shen is actually a decent matchup, although Urgot is fairly auto-attack reliant, and Shen does have the ability to disarm or block all auto-attacks in a range. The Urgot pathing into that Black Cleaver means he's going to be shredding through Frez's armor. We see Trick coming in with the Lilia in the jungle, and Yule with the Cassiopeia pick in the middle lane. It would have been interesting to see from the Pro Drafts perspective at what times each champion was picked. Unfortunately, we're just seeing it as it's happening now to see how these champions decided these champions were going to be the selections for these 2 teams. But we do get the advantage of seeing what the matchups are like right away. And it's going to be the Cassiopeia versus the Anivia in the
Classic League of Legends coming out here in that mid lane. Love both of these champions personally, and looking forward to seeing how RSM could pull this off, because this is definitely way different than the LeBlanc. And then this time, Lazzie's going to be picking up the Ashe and Mansfo on Leona. This, basically, the team's trading the bot lane there, able to pick that one up nice and quick. We've seen it a lot during the Jury Invitational tournament this weekend, and we'll have to see if this turns that bot lane's life around. Meanwhile, on the side of you, Windsor, if that sticks, that's an interesting pick for support. The Maokai Ezreal bot lane.
I have to say, just looking at these drafts, I really prefer the St. Clair draft here over what U Windsor is bringing to the table. U Windsor's draft kind of looks like it's a little bit all over the place. You have this really aggressive Nunu jungle. You have this like early to mid game carry in the top lane with the Urgot, and then in your mid and bot lane you have really late game damage threats with a Maokai support that typically abuses his strength in the early game, but isn't necessarily much of a threat in the later game until those tank items come online, which is not going to happen if you're living on a support income. Versus St. Clair's draft, it's a little bit more put together. They've got really good initiation with the Ashe, the Lilia, and the Leona. They have great damage follow-up and kiting potential on the Ashe and the Cassiopeia, and they have the Shen there to respond to this Nunu's early pressure. When Nunu comes in for these ganks top lane, Frez should be comfortable enough to get himself out of dodge, and if he decides to go bot lane, all of a sudden, stand united. Frez is there to join the party.
Absolutely, and this the Shen coming out here for Frez is something we've seen many times so far this season. It's not necessarily a champion that he likes. I know it's not on his personal comfort picks or anything like that, but it is definitely a role that needs to be filled, whether it be split pushing and being able to teleport into the fight, being able to be at least a little bit evasive in that lane in case Iron decides to make a couple return trips up there, similar to the game number 1. And we'll have to see how that ends up. One thing I'm very intrigued is Maokai support. This is the first time I've ever seen it. I'm not sure if this is like a one-off thing or if this is actually something that just shows up in solo queue more often than not. Do you know anything about this Maokai support?
It definitely is a more traditionally solo queue style of pick. Maokai has, as a support, it's not totally off base, right? He has the knockback with the Q. He has the ability to root with the W. He's got the slow on the E, so he's got a number of crowd control abilities with the root, of course, in the overgrowth on the ultimate there as well. So there's a lot of control tools available to this Maokai in the bottom lane. What's interesting to me about this pick is that it's not paired with an aggressive ADC. Now, of course, we're going to have to see how Tiller pilots this, but typically Ezreal doesn't start doing damage until those first couple items are completed. And Maokai puts that pressure down early. He is good against the Leona in the sense that he can dodge through the Zenith Blade with the root, and you can kind of engage that way. But if there's no follow-up, what are you really providing to your team? So it's likely that Iron is going to be focusing his sights on this bottom lane, trying to follow up on Goku's engages, respond to this aggressive bot lane that Niansfu and Lazi are currently threatening. Whereas the mid lane is just kind of going to be a farm fest. You know, RSM and Yule are going to be happy to just last hit creeps until Kingdom Come and really get those items built up and do their damage in these mid to late game team fights. So really, again, this is another game where the jungle difference is really going to matter. Trick has to step up. He learned his lesson last game. He saw what Iron can do on this Nunu if he's left unattended. He's going to have to really turn the heat on a little bit, put a little bit more pressure on this map, abuse some of the weaknesses in this middle lane, abuse some of the weaknesses in this top lane, maybe get his team a Herald or two, and really try to force down these turret plates before Windsor's draft comes fully online.
And it was really weird, like, with first game, with game one, it's not that necessarily Trick did bad. Like, he was getting ganks, he was diving with Frizz on the top lane, he was getting some eliminations here and there, but it seems like as soon as it started becoming, like, more of an objective-focused game, everything fell apart. Like, the entire St. Clair squad were either not all set at the same time, staggered their entrance into team fights. Like, there was a few times where it seemed like they dove in, like, 2v4, even though I don't remember a fight in the bot lane where it did go in their favor in the end, but it could have been much better if everybody just actually collapsed on each other. And then the fact that RSM was playing that the Burst Mage in LeBlanc was not making his life any easier. But the fact now we have the Anivia this time by can still pump out a ton of damage, but is also a little bit beefier, a little bit more of a control mage compared to that LeBlanc. I'm going to be definitely looking forward seeing how this one ends up turning out, considering, as you can probably hear, we're loading into the game. Game number 2 between University of Windsor and St. Clair College, starting now.
Yeah, I mentioned as well that for Yule, these control mages are a little bit out of his playstyle as well. As you were mentioning in the beginning, he likes these assassins, these champions that he can, make a montage out of a little bit. We've seen him pick up the Silas, we've seen him pick up the Akali. These are the kinds of the champions that he usually likes to play, but recently, Blazen's kind of been forcing him onto a different style of play with these control mages, with these late game AP burst type characters. And with the Cassiopeia, this is a little bit out of his comfort zone as well, but I am expecting to see a pretty decent performance here. He has a really good situation for the Cassiopeia. There's not a whole lot of threats from this Windsor draft that is going to affect this Cassiopeia. Maybe a Nunu in the early game, maybe a Maokai in the late game, but for the most part, if Yule can get himself a decent enough lead in this early to mid game, he should be able to carry this one for his team.
And it looked like St. Clair was initially going to go for some aggression, opting against it. However, Trick going to make his way back towards the bot lane, it looks like, for that red buff specifically. And on the other side, it's going to be the blue start once again here from Iron. And just hopefully for St. Clair's side of things, he doesn't get snowballing again. Otherwise, it could be rinse and repeat here. And a quick 2-0 for the University of Windsor would really be shutting us up here today. To be honest, like I said before, I don't mind being wrong. I want to see you, Windsor, come in here and do fantastic. All competition is good. We can't be sitting thinking we're the best around all the time. And the fact that the first game was pretty back and forth has me expecting another fantastic match here for Game 2.
Yeah, in this bot lane here, Niansfu putting on the pressure here onto Tiller. A great poke combo here from the beginning. There's actually the Ignite. Tiller's not going to live through this.
One more tick away, just enough.
Oh my gosh. Well, really, proving me wrong there for sure. Walking out with just by the skin of his teeth here, but Lazi and Niansfu coming up heavy here in this bottom lane. Look at him go. He's just running them down with all this damage coming in from these auto attacks, these Frost Arrow volleys. I'm honestly shocked that Tiller survived that. But look at Trick now. Look at this aggressive play from St. Clair. Everybody is dying or flashing on the Windsor side. There is no sums available for the AD carry, no flash available for Iron. Goku has his resources available, but he's on less than 50% health. And Lazi and Miansfu just dominating the early game here.
That was absolutely fantastic there. They didn't blow too many of their own resources. Lazi still has flash if necessary. Sure, they burned the ignite from Miansfu, but being able to match shot for shot with the jungler, Trick, tracking Irons properly, thinking that he would go there, and sure enough, as soon as the gank was pushed aside, was able to continue, push into the jungle and just harass him even further. Trying their best to slow down Iron, considering how crazy that first game was.
But here, looking kind of at this path now from Iron, he knows, like, he's taking his blue buff and Gromp on the bottom side. Even though he got zoned off by Trick, he walks top immediately for that Scuttle Crab, and it looks like he might be going for the mid lane gank here, but Trick, with another exceptional map read, he's here, he's in position with Miansfu as well. This is not going to go Windsor's way. That Nunu getting bursted out. There's the first blood to the Lilia.
Oh my.
The dive under the tower, burning away the flash from RSM. Excellent map reads from St. Clair. They are reading Windsor like a book right now.
That's exactly the kind of start they needed, being able to match shot for shot, and the fact that Miansfu was already in that mid lane. So even when Irons came there and Trick was there, it was not the 2v2. The fact that Miansfu walked all the way over to RSM, stunned him, the fact that he could not whip out any more icicles, no more of those big snowballs, could not burst down. I believe it was Yule who was low at the time. So St. Clair going to get the first elimination on the board, going over to Trick. And maybe we can see if we can get St. Clair's jungler this time snowball on a little bit.
I mean, when you're playing against this St. Clair team, it's like there's two junglers on the map. Because Miansfu is just always there.
That's true.
You're never really in a 1v1. Because as soon as you go for a look, all of a sudden the supports come out of literally nowhere. And he's just ruining your play, ruining your day. He makes your engages feel weak and awkward. He's there to respond to every single move you make. And we've seen Iron prove to us that he can be the stronger jungler when it's a jungler on jungler battle. But when it's a one jungler versus two, how do you beat that aggression? So Miansfu really taking advantage of the space that this Ashe creates in the lane, putting that pressure down on the middle lane. Really good start for St. Clair.
I feel like so much of that has to do with the fact that this bot lane swung so hard in St. Clair's favor off the bat that so many resources were blown and they can't get aggressive, which allowed Miansfu to actually go for those roams. If it was the bot lane constantly pushing back with enough pressure, Miansfu wouldn't be able to leave. He'd always have to stay there and protect Lazi, but that's not the case. And even when Miansfu was on the roam, there was no aggression coming out from the side of University of Windsor at all. He was able to just keep on farming. He's now a level ahead of Young Tiller. Just going to make some of those abilities hit that much harder and that much closer to the Ashe Arrow, which of course is such a strong engagement tool.
I just want to acknowledge Trick's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder here. But here's the engage here from Miansfu with the dive in, with the Zenith Blade. There's going to be the egg popped for Anivia. Yule's going to have no problem cleaning that up before it respawns there. There's the kill there now. Miansfu going in for the dive under the tower onto Iron. Can Yule clean this up? It's a little bit of an overstep there, but he does have the Trick flashing in for the kill. Just as I was going to say, Trick, a little bit of a chip on his shoulder with that Dark Seal buy. I think he's a little salty about the new Magi's last game, and he's not going to let that go unpunished. Looking like he's going to build a Magi's of his own, and honestly, with 2 kills now at 6.5 minutes, might not be that out of reach.
Absolutely fantastic there from St. Clair and from Frez as well specifically. Yule would have went down, but pushed himself a little bit too far with that Stand United, that extra shield to keep him topped off, so he was able to tank that turret shot like it was no big deal. Really coming in clutch to make sure that stayed as a positive for St. Clair on that aggressive maneuver. Now we do see Dragon being hovered around actually as Iron is on his way there. And the bot lane on St. Clair's side are actually backing up. Miansfu not going to be available, so they could sneak this under St. Clair's nose uncontested.
I mean, as soon as Trick shows top lane, it's the move you have to make, right? It's exactly what you have to do. But here comes the sleep down from Trick now. Offline does have the flash available. The ult gets committed under tower. There's going to be the dive there. Frez with the cleanup kill. Trick is running this map right now. St. Clair has to know that Windsor's on this dragon now, though, and if they don't, they'll know in about 2 seconds when it pops. Yeah. There it goes. The Infernal Drake coming for you, Windsor. It's a good punish from Windsor, but if St. Clair can flip this into a Herald, perhaps, it's not all hope is lost here for sure. Lazy getting dove under tower a little bit, taking a little bit of poke damage there, but Nienzo with the flash auto. Lazy whiffing the crystal arrow there a little bit, not going to find the stun onto Iron. He's just going to walk out of there alive, but Nienzo with these Zenith Blades, he's like 100% accuracy with right now. Lazy with the flash in, with the Q for the finish here. Iron has overstepped a little bit. He's got no flash available now. Frez here responding to offline with the TP. Gets the taunt available on the landing there. Might have overextended a little bit with that move there. Lazy's going to try to help him kite out, tank some of these Qs here from Tiller, tank the Mystic Shots. In the middle lane here, there's another skirmish. It's Yule versus RSM, but Trick is there for support. And with no egg available for RSM, Trick is just going to slap, crackle, pop, and there he goes. RSM is down. Yule getting the cleanup kill here. St. Clair, 6-1 in this early game.
Oh, this isn't done, however. We see Iron on his way back, but can he actually burst through the damage from Cassiopeia? Not if Miansfo can just give him a little bop on the noggin, lock him up, and that's going to be a Cassiopeia. Yule is 3-0-2 before 10 minutes, and considering this is a champion that has a little bit of a slow start, that is a massive yikes for the side of University of Windsor.
That's a little bit of a missing thing play there from Iron. I mean, especially after we've seen the way he performed last game. Walking into that middle lane, I know you have the Urgot behind you, but you're 1v3 on like 30% health. But oh my gosh, Nienzo looking for the Hex Flash over the wall, just misses the range slightly, doesn't find the blink range that he needs. Not going to be the fight we're looking for bot lane. I was just about to say, the fights don't stop in this game. Frez actually picked himself up a Tiamat. He's looking to match this Urgot's push in this lane, so he has the ability to flexibly ult around the map. Putting the pressure down into this Anivia in the middle lane means that Frez can safely stack the armor and build against these AD threats and ignore the Anivia for the time being until she starts getting those items online.
Yeah, man. We've seen RSM have a slow start a little bit in that first game as well, so not exactly in a position that he's not too familiar with, but he was able to still be a massive threat by the time that game finished up. A bit of an engagement here down on the bot side, forcing the ult out of Brazilian Goku. But St. Clair just going to run away. That's going to be some sleep coming in here momentarily. There it is. Both of them caught up. Lazy trying to get as much damage as possible. Miesfo might have to try to dive. Not going to actually need to. Lazy going to pick up the elimination. Iron was thinking about making his way down there, but is going to opt against it. And St. Clair picking up another one.
St. Clair is playing this game exactly the way they need to. Trick, specifically, is playing the game exactly the way he needs to. He is punishing this Nunu time and time again. Not only is he out-ganking the Nunu, he is out-farming him as well. And that is just beautiful in this Lilia versus Nunu matchup. Lilia struggles with these solo objective clears, whereas Nunu typically can just fight and bite his way through them. But if the Lilia has a level lead, you win those smite fights. You actually have a chance of outsmiting a Nunu if you can get yourself that level advantage. And right now we have level 8 versus level 7 in the jungler, and that lead is only going to expand for Trick if he keeps playing the way he's playing. Now has the jungle item with the Runic Echoes enchantment completed into the Mercury Treads here, which is going to be an excellent pickup into this crowd control heavy comp from Windsor. As for items on the other side of the team, we see Lazy nearly finished his call here, about 30 CS ahead on the call over the Ezreal. With the Blade of the Ruin King nearly completed in the middle lane, there is the Seraph's Embrace nearly on its way for the Cassiopeia. These item spikes are just around the corner, and when they hit, they're going to hit hard.
Looking brutal. The Herald now possibly on the sights of Trick specifically. Granted, Iron is not too far away to contest. That's some good damage coming out here from MJC offline, though. Going to be able to push all the way down. That's going to be the execute missing its mark. So ult blown here on the side of offline. And if they aren't too careful, I do see some additional reinforcements from St. Clair starting to creep up, and it might be Owens getting picked out if they can bait this properly.
It looks like St. Clair might be going for a little bit of a scrap up here in the top lane. Yule going for the support there with kind of getting a little bit of poke down there underneath the tower. But RSM pushing away at this mid lane tower with that ultimate available now on the Anivia means he can just drop the ult and walk away, and the creep lane will die. Creep wave will die in no time at all. So he can really start to punish these roams from Yule if Yule continues to make those aggressive plays. That being said, there is a fairly significant farm advantage in the mid lane. 20 CS up for Yule with 3 kills as well. And if each of those kills being about 15 CS, we're looking at a roughly 65 creep score lead for the mid lane here. Yule definitely in a much stronger spot. But as this dragon fight comes up, we're going to have to see how these teams position here. But here comes the pick off here onto Iron in the jungle. Quick and easy, the slow into the ultimate. The crystal arrow finally finding its mark. Trick going to steal away this Gromp before rotating into the dragon. There is the herald available on the jungler. They could look mid lane with this herald now if they wanted to. But Yule taking a quick little fight here in the mid lane against RSM. That's a lot of damage coming out from this Anivia. But Yule with the comp, committing the ult, doesn't find it. But underneath the tower here, RSM barely surviving. Yule out-sustains him with that healing, with the Conqueror there on the Cassiopeia. If these fights keep going longer and longer, Cassiopeia is going to be loving these extended trades in the mid lane for sure.
And props to RSM for making that extremely close nonetheless. Maybe a little bit behind, does not quite have that Rod of Ages done complete, or done at this moment rather. But still able to get it extremely close to the point where Yule maybe overextended a little bit with that ultimate, but I guess it's not the longest cooldown of an ultimate ever, so not the biggest loss for the side of St. Clair. Turret plate's now off the map as we're getting closer and closer to that 20-minute mark. And Yule getting himself pretty hurt.
Into the sleep, but Yule doesn't actually commit there. Might have been a little bit of a miscommunication from St. Clair's side. They had the slow into the sleep over the wall, but Yule backing away to the creep wave means that there's not going to be a commitment there in the mid lane. Yule is walking down here to match Iron's rotation into the bottom lane. Trick is just going to escort this Rip Herald onto the tower here, but there's the commitment from Yansfu. Oh gosh, the double eclipse here, followed by the Xenoblade there. Tiller's going to get picked off here by Lazi. Yule chasing underneath the tower there. There's one, there's two. Iron is going to walk away. He's actually dying to the poison here. It's a 2-for-3 trade in the bottom lane with the Herald crashing against mid and Lazi surviving 3-0 now in this bottom lane, chunking away at this tower. 12-3 for St. Clair right now.
Gosh, if St. Clair just held on just a moment more, that Ash arrow would have been off cooldown. They would have been able to do it. But they definitely committed quick and early. As we see RSM going to be forced to burn Flash. No mana for him to try and make a play. Going to have to run for the hills. But best case scenario there for St. Clair is the fact that that one kill, that shutdown, went on to Brazilian Goku and not either Young Tiller or Ironed. And now that was the bot lane turret that just went down, I do believe. So now going to be even more difficult for that bot lane of University of Windsor's to catch back up. They're damn well going to try, but 6-1 right now for Yule. That is a scary snake.
You already see the mid lane rotation coming into the bottom lane. This is typically what you see, especially with an aggressive push comp like what St. Clair is offering. Once that tower goes down, but the crystal arrow finds the connection onto Tiller, and once the down, there's no arcane shifting out of this. Beautiful ultimate from Lazi.
I mean, it hasn't been a good day for Ashes so far today. We have not seen those arrows. Well, they made a bit of a mark here and there, but it felt like I was seeing a lot of whiffs so far today. But a nice shot from Lazi to turn that around onto Young Tiller was an absolute sitting duck for Yule to just spit all the poison. And in fact, it's going to try and do it again, maybe just coming up a bit short. However, Brazilian Goku now taking the heat, but does not end up going down, just barely out of range.
And this is the problem when you let the St. Clair draft get ahead. Typically, this draft wants to group up as 4 and have the Shen off in the silent. But when the Cassiopeia is this fed, it is very easy to set up a 1-3-1. You have your jungler rotating between the lanes, moving between objectives. You put your bot lane in the mid lane, where they have the ranged advantage, the ability to force down these towers. Your Shen is happy just chilling top lane. Here in the jungle, again, Iron's going to get red with the ultimate for the shield, but he's going to go down as well. Offline trying to make a play here onto Frez, but Trick is going to come in for the support. Offline is pretty tanky right now. He does a lot of damage, but he doesn't have the sustain to fight through this Lilia ultimate. He's actually going to flash in aggressively, try to get the turnaround kill here, but the ultimate shield, the stand united from Frez at melee range just to keep his jungler alive. Only one death here on Yule. I'm sorry, I looked at the stats and I'm just so shocked by the way the St. Clair team is playing. Like, it's murder.
It's night and day compared to the last game, that's for sure, but props to Offline there. It took so many players to take him down, and he was still threatening the elimination until it was either Frez or Trick in that engage, forcing Mansfo to get involved, put a stun on the player, make sure that everyone from St. Clair stayed alive. But now that top turret is going to be going down. This is the largest gold lead I think we've seen in the entire series, other than maybe the very end of the game during game 1.
Significant right now. K gold, 9K gold roughly in St. Clair's favor. I looked at the depth of KDAs as that fight was going on, and I just kept seeing 0 deaths. And that's why I got so pumped for Duel. Here in the bot lane, a little bit of an overextension here. Might not be 1 death any longer. There goes the slow into the knockup. Offline just going to chase this down and pick this up, but Yule getting a turnaround kill here onto Goku. 4v1, and it's a 1-for-1 trade just before the dragon spawns. However, that is quite relevant. Without having that Cassiopeia available, it is going to be much trickier for St. Clair to contest this objective. So even though there was such a massive gold lead for their team, they don't have a great hold over these objectives. Trick is actually responding with the Herald right now on the top side as we speak. So Iron is going to take away this dragon, more than likely, and Trick shortly thereafter is going to respond with a Rift Herald. And that second Rift Herald means that if St. Clair wins a good fight, they could be ready to just break down the base.
Definitely insane there. Props to RSM, though. This is exactly the kind of jump start he needs to get himself into this game. He's just sitting there kind of behind on farm, behind on eliminations and whatnot, but able to get the shutdown gold off of Yule himself. We see that Rod of Ages is now finally there. It is stacking. Good to go. Look into some boots sometime in the near future as well. That bird could be just around the corner from becoming a proper threat, more than just either a stun bot or a wall maker, if he keeps this up.
And that is important to note that the Anivia is starting to reach that late game item buys. We are going to see the Seraph's Embrace being picked up relatively soon here with that Tear of the Goddess already being stacked up. He actually opted for the tier before completing the Rod of Ages. So the Rod of Ages is only 2 minutes in. It takes about 10 minutes to complete its evolution into kind of maximum power. And he's only 2 minutes in now, which means we're not going to see this Rod of Ages completed until roughly 27, 28 minutes now for the Anivia. That is a lot of time that St. Clair has to kind of force these fights and get set up before that Rod of Ages comes fully online. The tier is stacking, but it's not yet a Seraph's engage. So if St. Clair can force this lead while they have it, this shouldn't be too much of a problem. And we see them doing just that here in the mid lane. Miansfu with the Zenith Blade onto Brazilian Gorku, forcing the flash over the Raptor wall. Yule's just going to pick off some of this this control ward here in the top side, get themselves established, so have their eyes on the Baron, and with an 8-2 Cassiopeia, it is a very real threat for St. Clair.
They could definitely burn that down quickly. Yule's packing plenty of damage, and they have plenty of support to make that work as well. Even Lazi, 5-0-4, been having a fantastic game himself as well. The Ashe arrows might not always be making its mark, but at the same time for both games, the Ashes have been doing fantastic. We do see a more supportive build coming out from Young Tiller. We do see the Iceborne Gauntlet basically making himself almost very similar to Ashe in a sense, being able to slow people with the use of auto attacks and Qs. But I'm kind of worried here for University of Windsor. We went from seeing Irons being an absolute monster to being pretty well a paperweight at this point with 0-6 and 3. Not on the map, no presence, and not able to stay alive.
They're doing the Baron, Danners. It's a 21-minute Baron. I apologize for cutting you off, but that's a big play here from St. Clair. They're just going to sneak it out from under Windsor's nose. They have no idea this is happening right now. The ward comes down just as it's about to fall to the smite. That's a 21-minute take now on this Baron Nashor. St. Clair can look to push down the base here. The Herald is still available for Trick. This is big.
It definitely...
The Ezreal ulti there onto Lazi getting poked out. He's not low on health and mana, so he's going to take the Baron Empowered recall here. But with that reduced recall time, he's going to come back to lane much quicker than expected. He's nearly finished this Infinity Edge. He's about a component away. St. Clair is looking really strong right now in game number 2.
It's kind of worried there for a second. We did see all of you Windsor get ready to push down mid, and in fact, Lassie with no mana and very little resources thought he was just going to throw away that Baron buff if they managed to catch him. RSM was right there, but did not quite have very much mana himself as well. So Lassie going to get away with it. But now, back in business and ready to do some damage. St. Clair coming with the Baron buff, and now look at Trick. He's the one with the Magi's this time. Oh.
And we've got the late Darksteel pickup for Yule. Both of these AP mages are looking into purchasing that big, scaling, threatening item here. Trick actually committing the Herald a little early here. Might have been running out on the timer. I'm not exactly sure when that was about to despawn here. But now they can force down the base. And the Nexus is becoming a very real threat here. That Anivia wall preventing the Herald, that was an interesting.
He just teleported.
Kind of jumped over the wall there a little bit. Not actually able to get too much value out of this Rift Herald here, but here comes the now onto offline, into the miasma from Yule. That's going to be a quick and dead Crab God here in the bottom lane. That tower is soon to fall. Miansfu posturing very aggressively here on the bottom side, giving his team the space they need to force down these towers. With Lassie in the middle, no one can touch this man. That's two towers going down at the same time on two different sides of the map. Lassie clearing his way through the jungle, might be able to have his eyes on the top lane tier 2 as well. And with no one able to threaten that, probably going to be a quick take here as well. With the Cassiopeia, they don't even need this AD carry in the bot lane. The Dragon's going to fall as well, and St. Clair is just taking everything they see, and it's theirs.
Taking that lead and trying their best to extend it. And it's definitely rough here for MJC3 offline, as last time, even though he wasn't necessarily always at the team fight, he was always a split pushing threat. Now on this Urgot, it feels like he just occupies a lane, it doesn't go very far, and then he just gets jumped on like it's nobody's business. And in the end, like at the way this is going, he's basically just going to be an execute if he can land his ultimate on the proper target and then just be a massive meat shield. It's just crazy to see the difference in value and effectiveness here from this top lane side.
Fortunately for Urgot, that early game did not go the way he wanted it to go. Frez did do a very good job of kind of holding his own in lane. Actually has a decent farm lead here in the top lane. The range to melee disadvantage did not affect him as much as it should have. And with Trick offering the appropriate amount of attention to each lane, really prioritizing, and with an exceptional gank route and clear path in this game as well, did a great job of supporting these weaker lanes. So even though there was a weak matchup in the top lane, it didn't feel like it because your jungler was always there to help. And in fact, Trick was really there for everybody in this game. So props to Trick. The junglers are really coming up big here in this Windsor versus St. Clair match. Game number 2, really looking like a St. Clair W so far. They're up 12,000 gold currently. The Baron has worn off, but that is a significant amount of gold in St. Clair's favor.
I still always hold my tongue in regards to there being, like, this game being a wash, though. If we remember back to our match versus Fanshawe during the OPSE preseason, Fanshawe was just absolutely demolishing St. Clair for the longest time, and St. Clair was somehow able to pull it around. And of course, that could happen the other way around as well. University of Windsor not out just yet, because we see St. Clair kind of split up here. The bot lane taking the bot lane while everybody else is trying to make a play up top. They seem to be a little indecisive as to where to hit next, and actually Trick might be taking some decent heat here and force the flash, so that's a little bit rough for him. A couple of resources gone before the fight even begins, but in the meantime, down bot, they're basically banging on the inhibitor turret.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really need to set up a traditional split push threat when everybody on your team is a split push threat. So for St. Clair here, they're happy to just keep hitting away all these towers and just wait for this Baron to spawn. Live in Windsor's jungle, starve their farm, force them to farm under the tower, which is trickier to farm there, limit their access to creep waves, punish the overextended pickoffs. There's Anivia here looking up in the top lane. Once these flashes start coming up, Yule about a 45 seconds away from having his flashback. We've seen what he can do with it. Trick there to support him as well. If they can find that one critical pick and transition that into this Baron, that could be the game.
Absolutely, and it could definitely well be the turnaround if St. Clair somehow blows this one and University of Windsor starts turning it around. Of course, these don't have any inhibitors down. Granted, yes, they're pushed pretty far into their base, but at least there's no super minions coming in. They can continue the hold. Offline seems to have this bot lane pretty well on lock now, as long as nobody gangs up to try to take them out. And sure enough, Windsor are looking to start putting some vision near that Baron pit. That's definitely going to be the next area of attack for them. And St. Clair know it. They're getting ready to set up as well.
St. Clair here clearing out their buffs, got their eyes on Baron. They've set the Shen up in the bottom side with the Stand United available. So it is going to be a 5-on-5 at Baron with the split push threat available in the bottom lane. Windsor knows this, and they know they have to contest this, so they're posturing aggressively here. It is worth mentioning that in the early game, Iron did manage to secure 2 dragons for his team. So Dragon Soul is not going to be a threat for at least another 5 to 10 minutes for either of these teams here. So Baron, everyone has their eyes on Baron. Nothing else matters right now on this map. And with Fred being able to put that pressure on the bottom lane and force offline to respond, he does have the TP available, but he's putting the pressure on the map here. Yule putting the pressure on the top lane as well, really making it awkward for RSM to establish himself in this team.
Had he got stuck behind that wall, that would have definitely been a bad time for Yule. Granted, RSM taking some heat pretty much this entire game, but can finally start dishing some of his own. And now Baron's actually being started, surprisingly.
There was an incredible bubble tossed over the wall from Trick. I was biting my tongue. I was about to see like a triple sleep coming out. He decided not to commit to it. He didn't have his team in position, but it did zone RSM completely off. Here's Yule with the double stun on the ultimate. The jungler is dead. There is no way Windsor can contest this Baron now. In fact, it is already dead. Frez positioned in the bottom side here. Might go in for a little bit of a trade here onto offline. The knockup is committed, but Frez responding with the taunt. They're just going to auto each other back and forth. And with this Bramble Vest for Frez, offline, not able to find too much damage of his own. Yule here just diving in 1v3 with that Conqueror healing. It's like he's not even being attacked here, but there is a fight in the bottom lane. Offline actually does find the kill out to Frez with the execute there. Not able to secure any kills in the middle lane. That being said, Yule is looking quite healthy considering the amount of focus and pressure he took. They're going to steal away this blue buff, and they have their eyes on the Dragon's Pit now. Urgot likely going to be able to walk out of this one. St. Clair, 14,000 gold lead here. 14,000 gold lead now in game number 2.
Gosh, I'm actually so surprised Yule got out of that alive. He was basically 1v3ing the University of Windsor squad. Just enough healing. Just kept on doing enough damage just to keep himself topped off. And that just turns into the dragon. So, of course, Soul is now around the corner here for St. Clair. Baron, a couple of the members we do see Iron thinking about something, but knowing better. Not the tanky boy that he was last game. Gonna just run for the hills and wait for some reinforcements to see if Fuel keeps on moving forward. And then even lastly at this point, 5-0-5, currently a threat. Miansfo has been absolutely everywhere as well. 10 assists to his name. And Frez may have gotten taken down in the bot lane. The good jump from MJC3 offline as was able to just duel him even underneath the turret. No big deal. Pops the execution, finds the shot he needed, and a little extra boost of confidence as he looks to get some additional items.
Yeah, looking at these items for St. Clair, though, however, for the Cassiopeia, it is worth mentioning that Cassiopeia does not have to purchase boots in her kit. She gets her movement speed from landing her Qs. And because of that, it means that she essentially has an additional item slot. That's not going to matter, though, if you overextend and get killed by the Urgot here. Unfortunately for St. Clair, they have the item advantages. They have the ability to set themselves up for the siege, but they're not taking it. They're not looking for this 5v5. Here comes the Maokai ulti.
Oh, no.
There goes Frez. Frez gets picked off there. But there is so much damage coming out of Trick now in the mid lane. Lazi killing up 2 in the back line. There are 3 dead now on Windsor side. Lazi's going to clean this up. That's a triple flashing forward onto the young Tiller. That's the slow, the stun
Holy moly.
for Lazi. And that's going to be the game for St. Clair here as they end this, break down the Nexus with that Baron power play here. The items don't matter anymore. It's just Lazi against the world. St. Clair 1-1 against Windsor here in this best of 3.
Yeah, it's not going to be enough time here on the death timers. It's only Brazilian Goku and Irons who are going to make it. Lazi did so much damage that fight. Yule got himself picked out, getting a little over-aggressive like we know he likes to do. But it does not matter, as Lazi and Miansfo going to close out this second game and bring us to a game number 3.
Mike Yule's choice here to pick up the quad crit build here as the Nexus falls, swapping out that ability power for the attack speed. He knows that he's scaling into next game. What a clown. But you get when you go 10-3, you get to be a little goofy like that. It just looks funny on the scoreboard, right? Like that's what it is. It's for the clips. It's for the screenshot. St. Clair.
I mean, we saw both of these junglers in game 1 and game 2 now taking things like Majai's, just extra little subtle jabs at each other. You like to see it. It's all, of course, playful banter in the end. Of course, we love the competition as much as we are like Windsorite rivals. At the same time, these guys have probably played together multiple times. They're probably buddies at the end of the day. So nobody taking it personally when these funny items get taken up.
Really not. And honestly, they don't matter when you're that fed. Like, it's just so strong. Like, from St. Clair, they had so much damage. I'd actually love to see what the actual damage dealt was from Lazi here. That was just an incredible amount. It looks like here on this Ashe, actually only 23,000 damage being dealt from both champions, both of the Ashe and the Cassiopeia. So a relatively low damage game. That being said, 23,000 is nearly double Windsor's highest damage dealt. So St. Clair pumping out tons and tons of power here in game number 2. And it looks like we're about set up here for game number 3. The players are just getting set up in the lobby here. But wow, great series so far.
It's quite the table flip here for the University of Windsor, one going from so dominant to so broken. It looks like, hopefully, for the side of University of Windsor, that doesn't mess with them up here a little bit too much, because of course we still got another game to play, and St. Clair definitely adjusted. But can they hang on to that? Can they keep on working, or is the Windsor going to turn this around, secure themselves the breadwinner here? As game 3 is just around the corner, but we're going to take a very quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be back in 5.